Is there another high-profile woman to have made false claims of SA and RAP? Uh, this one, the extremely wealthy former toast of the town, uh, high society star Amy Griffin, wife of John Griffin, the multi-billionaire hedge funder. She took her high society status and her connections and her great looks and ability to seed businesses of female founders and ingratiate herself with the A-list crowd. They clamored, as I said, to be on her speed dial and to have her cell phone number in theirs. She became number one on the name droppers list. I mean, you had all the big stars walking around at cocktail parties going, "Oh my God, I was like on the phone with Amy Griffin the other day." Oh, you know Amy Griffin. Oh, she became the uh, the star du jour. Okay, there, yeah. Everybody wanted, and stunning. I mean, beautiful woman. You got it all. This is what's interesting. There's Katie Couric down there in the comments section, and yeah. I don't listen, Reese and Gwyneth and Katie and Oprah and Jenna and, Mariska and everybody, Gail, they all fell at Amy's feet. Before we laugh at them and say, "Ha ha, look at these people. Oh my God, they look so stupid clamoring over this." Well, hang on for a second. We gotta get through all of this. It's not their job to vet the accounts of this fabulous woman. We all want to be in the company of fabulous people. We all like our heroes and things, right? It's not their job. It is the job, however, of, you know, Penguin, the publishing company. They're supposed to vet this stuff further. Um, but here's the story. In March 2025, Amy released the wildly successful, gripping tale of her early adolescence growing up in Amarillo, Texas, and most notably, uh, a very violent and severe, traumatizing SA that she suffered at the hands of a teacher she trusted who had been there at the end of it all over 30 years. Amy claims that while under the influence of MDMA, which I have done, the active chemical in ecstasy and Molly, and she said that she recovered memories of being RAP'd on many occasions by this middle school teacher and it started when she was 12 years old. She said, "I knew that these memories were real," she writes. "My body knew what had happened to me, the way I would shake when I would tell my story." She even talks about going to the dentist and the guy like holding her mouth open. And she's like violently like fighting back against the man. And he grabs her by the shoulder and says, "Hey, you got to sit still." And she's like, "Don't touch me." And she's, writes about these accounts and how much this had gripped her, but she never knew, she says, why she would have these guttural reactions towards men, towards certain situations. Anyway, the book was a massive success, huge success, over 100,000 copies. She got $1 million advance. It was number one on the New York Times for the first 4 weeks. It had all the ingredients. It was, post Me Too survival story, and like happens, a lot of these publishers say, "Well, what celebrities or influencers, do you think would be able to support the sales of this book?" And that's what they look at more than the actual factual evidence in a book. And she's like, "Well, how's Reese Witherspoon, Gwyneth Paltrow, Sheryl Sandberg, Oprah Winfrey, bop, 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 Katie Couric," and she rolls out all these names, and they're like, "Uh-huh, okay, wow, if all these women are gonna be singing about it, we gotta do it," which might have blinded them a little bit. But remember, now Amy is also a very powerful woman living in New York City. She's on the board of the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Big stuff. Her husband is over $10 billion. She seeded money for Bumble, the dating app, Goop. Spanx, all these things. Gwyneth Paltrow, bless her heart, said, "Look, this is an unbelievable book." I don't know if she meant that literally. Uh, I'm so deeply proud of Amy, calling her a beautiful, deeply positive, brilliant woman. This is the benefit luncheon crowd who are, Amy's the keynote speaker, and oh my God, we're changing the world. Oh my God. The limousine libs of the world are going crazy for this woman. Reese said by opening her heart, she became a beacon for women everywhere. Now, they're on the record with this. I do want to say, like, it's okay. We all do this. Every one of us gets impressed. I'm so sick and tired. How many times has some guy said to me, "Oh, Bushy, you got to meet so and so. He's incredible. He's a billionaire, dude." Always throw that in there. We're so impressed by money. He's a billionaire. Oh, great. Well, he's a billionaire. Well, then he must be like, very thoughtful and intelligent and have better advice on things than other people. And, it's kind of revolting, but everybody's susceptible. But Amy writes, in this book, she writes explicitly about this RAP and this SA. It's violent. Um, she writes, the first thing I remembered, and this is after she took the MDMA. She sat with these people. Her husband, by the way, a big financer of the Lycos company, which is at the forefront of psychedelic assisted therapy. And so they had this facilitator come to their apartment in New York, and she did this MDMA journey. And she said, the first thing I remembered was my head hitting the wall. And I heard a clang as his belt buckle hit the floor. So violent, so brazen. The middle school bathroom, the locker room, a classroom, under the bleachers. He RAP'd me there too. He tied her hands behind her back with a bandana, described putting his in her mouth and his pubic hair on my face. She says he beat her, dragged her on the bathroom floor, washed her mouth out with soap. On the night of the 8th grade dance, he assaulted her in a classroom, bent over a desk, a violent RAPing. Ugh. And then, of course, she says that the teacher told her, if you tell anyone, I'll rip your teeth out. So this is unbelievable level of violence that she talks about. And it started at 12. Uh, Here's an interesting point. Amy's teacher, this person, had no other complaints in over 30 years. Does someone do this once? I mean, don't people like this usually have some kind of pattern? No, and everyone knows who it is. I can't say the teacher's name, but it became obvious by the description of the book. Everyone knew who the teacher was in real life. And the police have never approached him, never said anything because people are like, ah. And then they had these book release parties when the tale came out in Amarillo, Texas. And all the people that grew up in this town, they started to wonder, wait, really? Like, why would this happen one time with this teacher who otherwise had an excellent reputation? No one else came forward. He did it once, and not only that, but to the wealthiest girl in town, like to the most success. Usually you prey on, right? Someone would, you think, would prey on someone with less resources, but she was definitely the most well-to-do family. Their family owned these convenience stores called Tootin' Totem, and they had 50 of them then. They now have 100. So other than marrying a billionaire, she came from a very good family too. In the book, she writes that the final assault happened when she was 16. So again, at these book parties in Amarillo, Texas, people are very confused. They're like, how, okay, you know, I myself had a experience that I repressed for, I always knew it was lingering there, but through a different method, I recovered this. It was never totally gone. It was just buried, but I recovered something. It didn't take MDMA. That had nothing to do with it. But I always knew it was there, and I was 8 years old. But between 12 and 16, now this is just one occasion, 2 occasions, but between 12 and 16, that's 4 years of violent SA and RAP and all this stuff. People were wondering, like, that needed to be recovered? Uh, she writes, "The final assault happened at 16. She was en route to a tennis match, and she ran into the teacher. Moments later, she found herself following him numbly into the team room at the tennis center. In describing the incident, Amy Griffin addresses a reader's potential skepticism, as she does frequently in the book. And it's true, even in the letter to the editor, to the pitch, when she was pitching publishing companies, she would write. You'd assume that remembering this, I'd have thought, how could I not remember? But wasn't I 16 at the time? This is Amy writing this now. I must have wondered, why didn't I stop him? I must have thought, how could he have done this in such a public place? Why didn't I say no? I must have thought, where were my boundaries? But she says, I didn't think any of that. Held in the golden arms of this magical medicine, the compassion I felt for young Amy was absolute. So I have texted I work very closely with a man who is at the forefront of psychedelic assisted therapy in Los Angeles. And recently I've had Marcus Capone, the Navy SEAL, on hot mics. It's a big cause of mine, and I mention it because I hope this doesn't set back progress, right? Like, all of a sudden, people are like, "Don't trust MDMA." MDMA has been derailed before. It was about to get FDA clearance, and one terrible incident involving SA of somebody who was under the influence, derailed it. One bad apple. But I hope this doesn't have a broader effect into something that's really, really helpful for people. I've never heard of it recovering deep memories. I've always known as MDMA takes the ego and tampons it all the way down so that you can just live with the simple truth. And maybe that connected with her here. I also want to keep a little bit of space for Amy on the side here, that she was a kid and it's someone else's. She heard a story and it became something that she lived, and that she's a victim of her own fantastical mind. And she's not a villain. She's not a let's just hold a teeny bit of space that she is not a premeditated narcissist who it's just wasn't enough to be unbelievably rich and great looking and deeply connected. I need to also be, you know, uh, on a massive pedestal as a victim who's saving and helping the world and girls everywhere. Like this, you know what I mean? Like, you've got so much, but God, I need more. Anyway, the New York Times, which totally, you know, boffed the Blake Lively situation by literally reprinting her craziness, did a deep dive here over several months, starting in September of 2025. They got into Amy's background, and we learned about the family and the convenience stores, the wealth, the marrying of all the things that she has done, how rich her husband is. She took the MDMA because her husband was a believer, like me, and she told the facilitator before she took the pill, she said, "There's something I can't face. I know something happened to me, something I'm talking around. There's something, but I don't know what it is, and I'm hoping that this will help me here." 5 minutes into the session, she writes in the book, she sat up, she bolted upright, and she said, "Why is he here?" And the facilitator said, "Who?" "Mr. Mason from my middle school," she said. Now, she spoke to a police investigator arranged by her lawyer and said, "When you're reporting this to the police in Amarillo, all these years later and you're writing about this, leave the psychedelic assisted part out. Just, you know, tell your story. And the cop down there who she reported it to, I think his name was Gordon Eastley. He said it was one of the most credible phone calls he's ever had with a victim. Like she was very, very believable. But then he told her, sadly, this falls out of the statute of limitations, so you can't pursue this violent teacher. So the New York Times found a lot of complications with her allegations in this study they did, citing a source named Claudia. This is a big, big character in the book and now a big character in her life. Claudia is the person now referred to as Jane Doe because she has taken legal action against Amy. But Claudia is in the book and she says this is stolen trauma. This is her story. Claudia claims the same incident that Amy writes about, being violently, RAP'd in a janitor's closet at a middle school dance, actually did happen to her. And Claudia was not a well-to-do person. She was poor. She was raised in a foster home, a group foster home in Amarillo, abused as a child. Now, a $21 an hour home aide for Alzheimer's patients, while Amy is, extremely rich, like over the top rich. But all of this is downplayed in the book. So Claudia claimed that she met with Amy in 2019 for coffee. And the first time she'd seen her since Amarillo, they were out in Palm Springs. And Amy all of a sudden just calls her and says, like, hey, we went to middle school together. Do you want to get together and have coffee? I'm out here too in Palm Springs. And she was like, okay. So they met at a boutique coffee shop and talked about their memories of growing up, but no talk about what had happened. Amy just said, oh, I've been, seeding these female empowerment businesses. She referred, according to Claudia, now Jane Doe, Amy referred to herself as a girl boss. I hate that. Fuck God, do I hate this? Such an obnoxious term. Girl boss. Just say boss. She referred to herself as a girl boss and told me she considered me a girl boss. I said, well, right now I'm working as a cleaning lady. She's like, yeah, but you're like a girl boss. Ugh, vomitus. The details of this encounter, having coffee, seem pretty specific, right? And they were only several years ago. But Amy claims that they never met. I didn't go out to coffee with this person. What are you talking about? I've never met her in person like this. Well, I spoke to Claudia's lawyer and I said, I assume there's an Amex receipt. Somebody paid for it. I'm sure the coffee shop, maybe they have recollection of these two people. Claudia says she was contacted after that by a talent agent. She assumed a guy named Dominic around April of 2022, 3 years after the coffee, and he was inquiring about optioning her story. Hey, look, I'm in production and I'm a producer and I work with talent and we want to. So she begins these conversations with this guy and he's gleaning information about her life several times a week. They're on the phone for about a month. And this woman, Claudia, tells her about her experience in middle school in Amarillo. And she begins to tell him about the assault and the stained dress of the poofy dress she was wearing the night that she was RAP'd, and the stain on that dress she had borrowed from Amy. The rich girl had given her a dress to wear to the dance, and she returned that dress to Amy with a stain on it. And she told this talent agent in 2023, before the book came out, about being in the bathroom and being assaulted and could feel the teacher's cowboy boot on her back. How specific a detail is that? And bandana stuffed in her mouth and being hit with a belt. This happened to this woman. So the talent agent, after gleaning all this information from Claudia, says, "Look, okay, great. Well, the next person you'll hear from is an assistant of mine, and we're going to meet in person, and we'd like to develop this." So Claudia, now Jane Doe in the lawsuit, started doing a little bit of research. Like a friend of hers was like, "Don't you think you should like look into Dominic, this guy, a little bit?" They found nothing about Dominic. Dominic, a talent agent, a producer, couldn't find anything about the guy. And then when she brought that up with him on the phone, he ghosted. So who knows? He was a private investigator. He was someone connected who was simply gleaning all of her personal information. Unbelievable. So next, um, Jane Doe thought uh, she thought about uh, you know calling a New York Times reporter, uh, and then she was like, "Oh my God!" She found out that Amy had actually written this book. She didn't even know that Amy had written this book. Um, so she got the book and she's like, "Holy shit, I better read this book." And in the book, she describes the dress as frilly, the assault occurring at an evening school dance in 8th grade. Amy writes that the dress was pulled up over her head. She was bent over a desk and that she felt the weight of the dress blotting out the light. All details that she had given to this alleged talent agent. Literally, the dress blotting out the light. A quote. There's no chance that this is a coincidence, is it? So in March of 2023, Amy started circulating the book proposal to publishers. And the book was, instead of called The Tell, when it was circulating, it was called Believe Me. And I've read the proposal, I have it. Um, She name dropped people, like I told you, who might help her promote the book. Amy Schumer, Laura Dern, Naomi Watts, Katie Couric, Oprah, Savannah, Anna Wintour, all these people. And then she ultimately sold it. 5 weeks before release, Oprah and Gail both promoted the book, to their combined 4.3 million followers on Oprah and Oprah Daily. Jessica Seinfeld and Savannah Guthrie followed suit. They were like, "Oh my God, this is it." This was like the woman everybody wanted to be in the room with. And so the glitterati fell at their feet. And they're all like, "You got to read the tell. You got to read the tell." And like I said before, people in Amarillo from that time who lived back then, they were like scratching their heads. They were mad at the teacher first, right? Like, who is this person? And then confused that others had not come forward. Again, the one-time offender. Uh, the richest girl in town is his one and only target. Why didn't she have bruises on her that anyone saw then, or missing hair that would have corroborated um, such a violent attack? And then they realized this was all remembered because of drugs, like MDMA is what we're relying on here. MDMA does such good stuff. Again, I'm really worried that this is going to be a problem for what's a vitally important um, therapy. But anyway, after all this, the book comes out. Amy donated a soft interview room at a family support services center in Amarillo in anticipation of other women, coming forward with similar experiences. She donated this very fancy soft interview room. It had recording equipment in it, and very gentle florals and furniture and comfortable rooms where women could come and do an interview and give their accounts and feel protected and safe. What a lovely thing she did. No one has ever used it in 3 years. It has never been touched. No one's come in, and certainly not about this teacher. So the sergeant, the person the police officer she, gave her account to and conveniently left out that MDMA was that, he was totally surprised when he found out that all of her report, is because of MDMA, a drug. He didn't know that. When he originally spoke to Amy, she failed to mention it. He just figured, that she had found the courage to come forward. He was deeply moved. So Claudia, in the book, Jane Doe, now suing Amy Griffin, filed this lawsuit. Claudia now is Jane Doe, and she describes the dress as frilly and the assault occurring at an evening school dance in the 8th grade. She writes that the dress was over her head, that she was bent over a desk, that she felt the weight of the dress blotting out the light. Claudia says, Jane Doe says, I recognize this scene closely mirrors my own experience at this very dance, wearing a floral, puffy dress borrowed by Amy, being led away from the dance by a teacher, being sexually assaulted in a secluded area, and then returning to the dance, disheveled and ashamed. In the tell, Amy also writes about being violently assaulted by the teacher in the middle school bathroom, describing being thrown to the floor, having her hands restrained, being hit, suffering traumatic, painful attacks. Claudia says, I recognize this description as closely resembling the second assault I experienced in the school bathroom, when the teacher put his boot in my back and stuffed a bandana in my mouth and slammed me against the wall and hit me with a belt. Okay, there's no way that that happened to two people. Two girls in the same class, those exact same details. And by the way, of course, as you know, Claudia is saying, which the most interesting thing is, Claudia is not claiming, she's claiming it was a different teacher. And someone who, by the way, left the school district very shortly after and disappeared. That's who she claims did it to her. Not the guy who still lives in Amarillo that Amy Griffin says did it to her. The book further describes a classmate given the pseudonym Claudia, who grew up in a difficult and unstable environment. Well, Jane Doe is that person. And by the way, her name is out there now. It's public. I don't feel comfortable saying it. I think she should remain Jane Doe, and she will, as far as I'm concerned, but we know her name. That she says the description of this Claudia in this book fits me and only me. It couldn't be anyone else. There was only two girls in the home, as well as some other boys in this foster home. I'm the only one with blonde hair. I'm the only one who had this happen. And she has corroborating accounts of that too. It was called the Presbyterian Children's Home. And she was a little girl who struggled for acceptance from, more privileged, cooler kids like Amy. So, yeah, this can't be a coincidence, guys. But, like Blake and others, and we see this all the time, she is doubling down. 3 weeks ago, on June 16th, Amy filed a countersuit, defamation, alleging none of the claims are true from Claudia. About their meeting. Never met for coffee. Never lent Claudia a dress back in the day, although there are others who remember that. I'm sure a receipt from the coffee shop could explain that part of it. The talent agent, Dominic, says they found him. He says he never called her for this purpose. Well, why would you? You didn't call her for this purpose? What'd you call her for? Why would you call her at all? How would you track down this woman and want to hear her story? But you say you didn't call her because you wanted to hear her story, just wanted to hear her voice? Jesus Christ, doesn't add up. So Jane Doe's attorney, Zach Rosenblatt, responded on June 29th to this filing countersuit, this defamation suit from Amy Griffin on June 16th, doubling down on this woman. He responded on June 29th with major discovery, including several testimonies and a big see ya in court. So these are the things I was reading last night. There's a testimonial from William Jennings Bryan. He was a boy who lived in the foster care family home, the Presbyterian Family Center. He had a crush on Claudia, the girl described as Claudia in the book back then. He confirms the details that he took her to that dance. They were driven by a chaperone from the foster home. And he says she disappeared in the middle of the dance. And he remembers details of her tousled hair and her frilly dress, and her saying to him that the teacher had engaged in sexual acts with her. he corroborates that. This is not a friend of hers. This is not an accomplice. He says he hasn't seen her since they graduated that high school, but he remembers it very well because that was his crush. Then you got Tanya Francine Vandenbosch, an older kid also living in that foster home. She said, after the dance, I recall that Jane Doe came to me and asked me to help remove a stain from the dress that she had borrowed. I remembered she was acting strange and really embarrassed, but she did not tell me what had happened to cause the stain. And then a person named Pastor Jody Shelton, a man who is a pastor living in Georgia now, also a classmate of Amy Griffin and Jane Doe back in Amarillo. He says Amy's description of Claudia in the book can only fit Jane Doe. It is without question her. Quote, blue eyes and blunt cut bangs. I only realized she lived in foster care when I saw her boarding the big white bus that everyone knew took kids back to the group home. And Amy's writing about, you know, those are her words, the big white bus that took these kids back to the group home. And they would come to school every day. And that this girl, Claudia, had blue eyes and blunt cut bangs. Well, who else? only Jane Doe is that person. And then they have a testimonial from Janet Nowak, a coworker from Nevada, living there now, coworker with Jane Doe now. And she says that her friend had told her about the agent calling her and getting all the details of her life story. And then you have a woman named LaRonda, a coworker of Jane Doe as well. They've worked helping survivors together. Says that Jane Doe told her this exact story, and all the details were told to her. This is crucial. All the details were told to her before Amy wrote the treatment or conceived of the tell. That's a huge witness if this goes to a coworker of Jane Doe says every detail of this was told to me before Amy ever conceived of the book. There's no way, in other words, that the reverse is true. Now she's trying to hijack Amy's actual memories. This. How does this end well for Amy Griffin? I get it. Interesting. In Amy Griffin's treatment, in the deal she made with the publishing house, they said, she said, look, I retrieved these memories. They're recovered memories from MDMA. I believe them entirely to be me. But maybe there could be something else. The publishing company did not do any research, any vetting on their own, because it is a jungle out there in the publishing world. And the fact that they had Oprah and Katie and all the big stars ready to get behind and power this book for her, they knew it would sell. And they're just looking for books that sell. I mean, it's a struggling industry, thanks to podcasts. Hey now. Anyway, so Zach Rosenblatt, the lawyer for Jane Doe, filed a motion to dismiss Amy's anti-SLAPP defamation suit from June 16th. And there will be an oral hearing on July 23rd to see if this case is going forward. And we will be there every step of the way. Okay, comment section. Harry, you've been putting these up, right? Oh, I see Jenny Lou has been up for about 3 hours with the same comment. Everyone tell Harry he's supposed to be working the comment section. I think he was so into the story that we missed our group feedback, mostly entirely. Let's see what's going on here. Let's see what's going on. Your thoughts, folks. What do you think about this? Cheers from Toronto. Mr. Bush is so right. I respect him for it. Thank you very much. I don't know if I'm right, but I'm definitely, putting forth. This story fascinates me. It is wild, right? Here's someone says, Dr. Sam Vaknin, world lecturer on this malignant narcissism, chat with a narcissist who is cognitive of his behavior and warns people of dangers. I don't know if that's her case. Um, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like I, I'm trying to find the off ramp for Amy Griffin, right? Where is the off ramp? How does she get out of this? Does she say, hey, you know what? This is clearly a mistake. She's gone too far. She's already filed a defamation suit against Claudia, the girl from the book who was in the foster home. She's filed a defamation suit against her. This is, I mean, she's past like Blake, the past the point of no return. I mean, and where, oh God, the A-list, the glitterati, all these people, they're dead silent. They're dead silent. You don't hear from them, and they're how embarrassing. And again, I just don't want to. I want to give them some grace. You know, we all have stars in our eyes, even big stars. Gwen Campbell here says, if you read her proposal that's on the court dockets when she was shopping it around, huge details were completely different than what ended up being the book released. So they did some editing, but did they do any vetting? Right? Um, clearly, clearly not enough. At least. So, yeah, this is good morning. Good morning, Joy. Yeah, it's a wild story, Christina Holiday. It is a wild story. I don't understand what drives people to do this. You've got so much money. You've got so much influence. You're seeding these girl boss companies. You're hot. You're great looking. You're like mother of 4 kids and your billionaire husband who's fit and good looking. Like the world is your oyster. It's not enough. It's not enough. I need to be revered. Is that what's going on? Oh,